All right. Good night, everybody. Welcome to Mindful Things podcast. And tonight we're here to definitely bring you, bring to you the knowledge and expectations you definitely deserve. I'm your co-host tonight, Javante Chatham, and our leader, Marjorie Beza, our host, and today our guest speaker, Mr. Brian Skinner. Now, before we start off, I would definitely like you to check out our previous podcast episode where we interviewed a Mr. Antonio Human. And trust me, like we said, he is no regular human. This man, he conquered so many challenges. He's so successful. He's well rounded, and I honestly tell you, I could not be any more proud of him and his mom. Because usually most parents would have probably given up, but not her. She's strong, she's focused, she's dedicated, and she shows that genuine love and support that a mother shows their child. So I definitely want to encourage them to really stay with it and stay focused and stay consistent. And consistency is usually something that's difficult for all of us because we struggle with being consistent, especially when we're definitely not seeing any sort of progress. So just remember, consistency is key. Staying focused and always support those who support you no matter what. So before we go into our speaker, I would just like to show you a small clip of some of the great things Mr. Antonio Human definitely has in store for us. And it's not only just his, for say, the work that he's done, but it's a collage of many materials that he has made over his course of time. So, without further ado, I definitely want to introduce you to a small thing for him.
Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me? Well, well, well. Here we are, another day. So, Javante, did you handle that piece of business and let the people know what we're doing here today and thanking them for showing up so that they can tap into the power of perspective? Yeah, I heard you. I heard you doing your thing. All right, all right. Let's do this. And ah, ladies and gentlemen, ladies, welcome, welcome, welcome once again from my end. I'm in sunny California, smoky California, lots of wildfires and stuff over here. But also just to say, it's been a week and I'm sure a lot has happened, a lot's been going on across the Caribbean, across, each of our individual islands, countries, nations. And, and there's a lot to talk about. So let's I'm not hearing you. Javante, I am not hearing you, honey. But I'm back. We're having, and that's why I was mentioning about the fires in California. Ah, there we are.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Oh my God.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. What's happening is the cell towers are being affected because of the wildfires. And
All right.
so, yeah, we're having some challenges with connectivity. So, as I was saying about the wildfires and smoke here in Cali, boom,
Hmm.
it tripped out. So, we're back. It looks like we lost a good doctor. Were you guys able to connect at all?
No, no, I was just introducing him actually, but then he disconnected right as I was trying to introduce him.
Okay, so I'm sending him a quick message asking him to log back in. In the meantime, let's keep going because I think it's important that we at least frame the conversation so that as he logs back in, we can, we can do a deeper dive.
All right.
Yeah. People in the Caribbean, I'm sure, and they're in Antigua and Barbuda specifically, would know of what's going on in our island nations with regard to crime and violence. Um, huh, uh, let's just say we need solutions, and we need solutions now, and we need solutions that are impactful now and transformative now. Our children are dying, our families are losing loved ones left and right. People are feeling unsafe and uncomfortable. Um, and we have the ability, we know, let me tell you this. We know what we know. There's been how many generations before us, how many eons before us. Um, we know, and it's best for us to bring forward ourselves. Like for me, with my expertise in policy, social, social change, development, and innovation, mindset change, going to the root of the matter. And that's why, for me, I'm always pretty excited about having Dr. Skinner as a guest, as part of that kind of conversation, because one of his key areas of expertise is he's a certified trainer, certified chaplain, but even greater, he is a masculine development trainer. Our boys, our men, our males. Um, and so that's how he and I connected, because we were doing some joint projects together in Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, and a couple of other places, specifically around change and development. But here's the kicker. Here's one of the things that people don't maybe appreciate or realize is that you can do all the training that you want. You can have all the webinars. You can have all the coaching, but without good public policy to support those things, it really and truly doesn't have the same impact, nor does it have longevity.
All right.
Usually, what was the reaction recently when that young lady, the 15-year-old, was found? What was government's reaction to that, if you recall?
Well, I don't recall what his reaction was, but as soon as that came out, they started implementing new things like the curfew. Um, and recently, he there was a news article in ABS that says he went to meet up with a couple of the gangster style to aid them in an egg retailing business, so to speak.
Okay, so meeting up with the gang leaders. See, here's the thing. Where do gangs live, quote unquote? Where do they exist?
In the country, I guess.
In a country, in a community. They
Right.
live somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And where do they exist? They exist in the community. So the head of government going and talking to them, that's a one off. You see me?
Right.
The sustainability piece is the other piece to that. So that's a good start. But who else went with him? Social services, nonprofits, the CSOs and NGOs, those entities that are what they call person facing or pain facing. Is a person or entity where, I don't know, let's say you don't have shelter. That's who you go to find resources and tap into resources related to shelter. They're the ones providing what they call direct services. Yeah. And
Right.
they're the ones that need to have the relationship because they're the ones in the community. They're the ones on the ground who would then need to facilitate keeping this relationship or these relationships going with a view towards moving in a direction that is healthier and that diffuses the need for you know what we and call know as and call gangs. There are two ways that we attack an issue. We can either prepare for it, emphasis on pre, yeah, that means
Mm.
before, right?
Right.
That's a prevention strategy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That means that's one less victim, that's one less childless family. Yeah. Post reactions, or when we're reactive rather than proactive, then we come up with more law enforcement and curfews and you know um these kind of high level conversations without supportive structures. Do you understand? So it's not that it's not a good thing, don't get me wrong, but it's not about what but who. Does that make sense?
Right.
if if you want to talk to a woman, a female who may be going through postpartum depression, would you send a man to go and interact with her, or a woman who would have gone through this same experience herself and would be able to relate and empathize and be authentic and continue that relationship and that connectivity over a long period of time? Because again, the one-off approaches and the demonstrative approaches are not necessarily the effective approaches. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And I'm pretty certain that he's not, that is not his skill set in terms of mindset change, psychosocial health and wellness, going to the core of what it is that ails us. If you look at the flyer and the topic that we're talking about today, it was very intentional. It says, what does character really have to do with it? Crime and violence, rooting it out begins at the root. What's the root? Is the root the gang?
Could be society itself, because gangs start from something, has to start the gangs. Like for example, let's say maybe cost of living, realize the jobs and them not coming to them and so forth, and then they say, okay, let's start a gang, start to robbing places and so forth.
Hmm. So, hunger, um, lack of adequate housing, lack of adequate resources, opportunities for just relaxation, etc., etc. One of the things that I plan on doing in Antigua and Barbuda, and I've already approached a couple of funders, is building at least two parks. Two parks. I mean, the greenery. skate park. There's facilities there for people to be wired if they want to, but the goal is to be limited wiring, because this is where you get out, you go on your barbecue, you go out, you throw your blanket on the ground under the tree, and you have your little whatever, and the family, and you understand, you
Right.
ride your bike, you and whatever. I also, one of the other things, motocross, where they can do motorbiking, yeah, and
Right.
just they can do it competitively, they can do it for entertainment, just like we do car shows, or we do, we have those kinds of events. I'm looking at it through the lens of, what would youth like to do? What would bring them out of their houses? What would get them off of their phone? And for our boys, and it's not just our males who are necessarily challenged when it comes to how they show up socially. And our girls too have been pulled into these kinds of behaviors. I've seen some videos that are quite disturbing. Them girls wilding out, them girls wilding out. And the notion that it's, we only look at our boys, I think that's something we need to look at very closely. We need to look at our boys and our girls. Yeah. And so, between the need for proactive approaches to the thing that ails us right now, the things that lend themselves to creating the outcomes we see in terms of crime and violence, in specifically Antigua and Barbuda as a case study. Not saying it's not going on across the Caribbean, because trust and believe it is. Trinidad and Tobago, oh my goodness, it's the wild wild west. Um, Name a place: Jamaica, wild wild west. Guyana, the U.S. Virgin Islands. Uh, there is a whole dynamic right now in the Caribbean region that's very concerning to policymakers, communities, families, individuals, about what the future looks like, because we find ourselves in a place and space of extreme violence, extreme issues around crime and violence. And the most disturbing piece of that is, from all reports, is the age of the children or the people who are engaging in these behaviors, and the nature of the behaviors that they're engaging in. You know, excuse me, I still have the remnants of that sinus infection that I had last week. But you know how we do here at Mindful Things. We don't stop. Why? Because they don't stop. It doesn't stop. Life doesn't stop. And what you have need of, that we have to give, we need to make sure that we're showing up and doing what we need to do, so that you have what you need to have, so that you can be best positioned to live your best life, have your best outcomes. Yeah? That's the whole goal and role right there. So back to this whole idea of, what's the root cause or causes of crime and violence. Javante would have pointed to one. He said, maybe society itself, and the lacks that are there. What about the things that are there that shouldn't be? So sometimes it's not just about what's not there that should be, but what's not that is there that should. What should be there? There should be water 24/7, 365, 366 on a leap year. There should be quality, world class education, and not just education that's geared towards going to university, college, but maybe I want to go into some kind of workspace having to do with what they call vocational education, mechanic, construction worker, um, cosmetologist, hairdresser, esthetician, doing your nails, masseuse, massage therapist. And then, of course, maybe I just want to be a homemaker, and that's an option as well. But we want to broaden the options and not still use old models, colonial models of what education looks like, as well as what success looks like. When a few years ago, a friend of mine, there in Antigua and Barbuda, did some research. It had to do with what the youth wanted to be when they grow up. And so, of 1,000 people, 1,000 youth, I believe they were between ages 12 and 20, I believe. I'd have to ask Elijah about that in terms of the age range. But of the 1,000 youth who were polled, the majority wanted to. Oh, hey, Antonio, tuning in from Coleman, South Dakota. Thank you. Good to see you. Good to know that you're there. Um, yeah. But of those 1,000, the majority of the areas that they had interest in focusing on, they wanted what they wanted to become. Almost to the person, they wanted to be accountants and they wanted to go into medicine. And and the question becomes, what is it about those particular fields that makes it attractive? And what is it that what's the reason that they would have chosen that those two at such a high number? And when you look at the way that education is designed, the educational experience is designed, there is a great emphasis on these quote unquote what they call high value employment opportunities. See, in we're getting into a little bit into the thickets, but let me just back up a little bit and say this. Who decides what's high value and what does high value mean? High value is normally associated with an economic factor. How much do you make? Yeah? How much is it going to pay you? What kind of power and prestige comes with that particular thing? Yeah? Having that job. Because also in that community or society, that job position is seen as prestigious. You know, you're somebody, you have power, and you have a position that people respect and will hold you in regard. Yeah. Everybody needs and wants to be respected. Everybody wants to be in a position of not just feeling, but being powerful. Yeah. Having some control over our outcomes and our lives, and, you know, seeing the hopes and dreams materialize, seeing in ourselves and believing that we have the capacity, the tools, and that the supports are there. The environment, the enabling environment is there, not just in the society, but in my home, in a place where I'm supposed to be safe and where I'm nurtured, and where it's like my little hot house where I can grow up to a point, and then I also know that they got my back, my side. Those kinds of relationships and situations are some of the places and areas where we gain traction and where you find the root causes, some of the root causes of violence, and criminal behaviors because it comes out of how I think. As a man thinketh, or woman, or whomever, as a person thinketh, so are they. Yeah? So is he, so is she. Um, and where does my thinking come from? That's one of the things, again, I love going back to Dr. Skinner. He has a competency that he and I tag team on, having to do with character development. Character development begins at home. Yeah, yeah. Not in the police force. Yeah, not on the streets, not at school, even though school supports your faith, your places of worship, and communities of faith inform and influence what goes on at home, and who you have the potential to become. When we talk about going to the root, therefore, when we talk about transformative change, change that changes, and I hate using the same word in the definition, but it's very helpful in this context. When we talk about changing outcomes in a community or in a society, we are talking about and I am back. I had to go run and get a different device, but nothing stops us. Nothing at all. What I was saying was, when you find change, when there's a need, we find ourselves in a space and a place like we are now, with the kind of atrocities that are taking place in our countries, with the kind of heinous behaviors, actions, and activities that are going on, and we want real change. And I mean real change. Change that comes from policy change that says, yes, I'm going to pay you a living wage so you don't have to work three jobs to make ends meet. The kind of policy change that says, I will make sure that the infrastructure is in place that allows you to be able to get to and from work in a consistent, reliable, timely, fully resourced way. Yeah. I'm going to make sure you have everything you need. Yeah. To be able to do what you need to do, to be able to provide, so that you can not just provide financially, but you can be at home and providing in a way that you are able to be to serve in the role. I want to say this right. To serve in the role that you need to serve in, to help create and sustain an enabling environment. Yeah? An enabling environment. Enabling environment. What is that? It's a space and a place where a person has the greatest opportunity to be able to fully develop in a healthy way, to enjoy the benefits of their society, and to enjoy having the opportunity to live, quote unquote, their best life. Let's, for instance, let me do this because I think it's important that I create a really robust picture, really, I don't know, nice tapestry that helps to create the framework for what it is that I'm talking about and how that works in real life. There's theory, and then there is the application of the theory. So it's saying the book, how does it look when we're on the ground? Yeah? Imagine building a house. Imagine building a house. What's the first thing that you do to prepare to build your mansion? And it could be, you know, a 4x4, but it's your mansion, right? So it's the mansion. What's the first thing we're going to do? We're going to prepare the area for purposes of use, yeah? Making it fit for purpose. Then we're going to lay the foundation. What's the foundation? The foundation is family. Foundation is home. Foundation is community. Foundation is the place where that person gets to learn, grow, develop, emerge, transform, almost like the chrysalis that a caterpillar goes into to transition to that next better version of itself is almost like a chrysalis. So when we talk about, or we're having a conversation about why, what role, if any, does character play in crime, violence, prevention, mitigation in a sustainable way, we have to take it all the way back to the root. And what's our root? The root is family. Dr. Brian's been trying to get in. Um, I know you're chomping at the bit to have your voice heard, and I would love to have your voice heard as well because he brings such a unique perspective and he drills down on the very concepts I'm talking about through the lens of biblical teaching. And it's not about, oh, we're trying to teach faith or to, recruit people into a faith tradition. It is about using the principles, the core universal principles coming out of our shared faith traditions, whatever they might be. Those principles are universal. No matter which faith tradition you look at, you will find that it is true that those principles are core. Thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's manservant, nor his maidservant, nor anything that is thy neighbor. Thou shalt treat, others as you treat yourself. Rabbi, what is the first and most important commandment? What's the second? Love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah? The first being love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul. Are those things not true, regardless of the faith tradition? And how do those translate into behaviors coming out of attitudes and values that have those as core drivers? Let's think about that. Let's just go to the second and greatest commandment, right? Because the rabbi, Joshua, the Christ, yeah, some say Jesus, some say there are different ways, but Joshua the Christ, in his response said, on these two hang all the prophets and the law. Yeah, everything else that's good, that's healthy, will come out naturally if we would apply these two. So let's look at Let's drill down on the whole concept of love your neighbor as yourself. What does that mean in practical terms? It says, who is my neighbor? And he went into the whole conversation about um, the Good Samaritan. Yeah. The answer is everybody. Everybody. That's the answer. Everybody. If I value him, her, them the way I value myself and treat myself, those attitudes and behaviors will naturally spill over into the world that I live in, the choices I make, the values I hold, and the impacts that I, excuse me, and the impacts that I have. Why is that important in this context? As a man thinketh, so is he. Where did where did we learn to think? Where did we learn to analyze situations? Where did we learn coping skills? Where did we learn the rudimentaries of relationship, healthy relationship having? Where did we learn those things? We learned those things first and foremost at the knee. We learned it at home. We learned it in the family. Yeah. And so it becomes important for us. It becomes important for us to prioritize the family as the core building block for community. And when we also add to that equation good public policy to support those, sky's the limit. Governments and leaders are running around, scurrying around, looking for answers to the problem. And that is absolutely an important work that they have to do. The question becomes, and how effective are those things going to be mid and long term? Short term, it just kind of dies down a bit. But the question is, did it go away? Did it transform? Excuse me. My apologies. But did it go away? Was there any change of mindset with those individuals that were engaging the behavior or those who are coming, who are going to be looking at them as role models? And what is it that people are targeting? Why are these the individuals that they are wanting to follow their example? Look at the life experience that it looks like they're having. They travel all over the world, they have money. As we say home, they say you're flush. Yeah? Flush. Got a lot. People are afraid of you. You're a bully. You can make people do things, snap your finger, and people jump. When you walk by, people bow their heads or cower or again, what are those? Those are expressions of power. Power, prestige, yeah? Power, prestige. What do those cause? When prestige, meaning I have position. I'm in a position of power. Whether it's government, whether it is in, let's say, even in the house, even in the home. Parents are people who are in positions of power, right? And that's an important thing that lends itself to when the child is looking and saying, okay, how do I want to be treated? What kind of outcomes do I want? And how do I see the people around me getting them, right? Then what are they going to naturally do? They're going to emulate. They're going to model the behavior Javante, I see your back. I see you're having connectivity issues as well, huh?
Well, electricity, man, electricity.
Look, just one of them days that a girl and a boy goes through. Don't make me have to bust out singing, right? No, say it's
Oh,
I'm a work in progress. But what I was sharing with the listeners and viewers is when you talk about going to the root cause of crime and violence, we have to go back literally to the root. We have to go back to what is root. And you'd said something earlier before technology started doing its weird thing. Uh, you said maybe it's society itself, and that there are some challenges and limitations there. But there are also, you know what, there are opportunities. We just need to understand how change happens, and then we go after the tools and the resources to make real change, sustainable change, transformative change. That's for me where Antigua and Barbuda is right now, is in a position where she needs that. She needs real change. Now, let me ask you this, because I know you're a young man, well, relatively young. We don't call you out like that. And you see and hear what's happening in the community, in the country. How do you feel about that? What are the concerns that you're hearing coming out of your community of persons? What solutions are they kicking around, if any? Is it even on their radar screen? I think we need to begin there.
well, most of the times, a lot of us like to complain about the rise of prices, especially when it comes to like transportation, something that most of us heavily rely on to get to and from places. Young persons of myself would usually, for example, would have a job that is far out and would need transportation to get there. And you know, having your own vehicle is nice and all, but by the
Mm.
time you put gas in, that's like a whole, $17 per gallon, and that money is gone one time. Another complaint, well, another way they like to say is as soon as they get the money just gone. That's what they always say.
Say that one again. You're echoing a little bit. I'm sorry.
I was saying that, or give me a second, sorry.
Okay, yeah. It's just a little bit distorted.
All right, sorry about that. So I was saying that one concern that we always have is that from time we get the money don't go quick. Like the
Okay.
prices in the country is ridiculous. Yeah, I understand that we're importing more than we're exporting goods, and the pricing could, because you also have to like pay for employees, pay for like all those extra things that you have to add into the prices in order to upkeep like specific buildings and so forth, and even pay the employees. But I understand why the prices are high, but at the same time, we're still complaining about the prices because let's say you want to get a nice meal and a drink, that's just like $20 right there, $10 to $15 for a meal, and then the rest of that money is just for your drink, and then that's it. Whereas back then, you could have got a meal for like maybe, I don't know, maybe like $7, $10, and then you just had like the rest change for you to do what you want to do. Like that's one of the problems most persons see today when our age. And another thing is lack of opportunities where our careers are involved. Like
Mm-hmm.
for example, myself as a musician, there's not much from here for me to do. And that's forcing me to leave the country to pursue my career even better. Because whereas I would like to stay here and develop my craft, most I can honestly do is just play at restaurants, maybe do a little studio session here and there,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. There's not much live events for that kind of music that I want to perform because it's mostly soca, jam music down here. But what about catering for other genres like reggae? Because you have reggae in the park, and reggae in the park is normally held. Can't remember the country, but not much, not really in Antigua. Um, you also have like opportunities when you're going overseas. Now they offer me a lot of opportunities because I have a chance to really intern in a studio, have a chance to really go around board meetings and all that kind of things. I can't get that down here. I can only get them overseas. So,
Right. Okay.
and the
Yeah.
returns as well for that is like you don't get much recognition. Yeah, you have one a few people who will be like, "Hey, you see this guy? This man, he bad no joke on keyboards. You won't forget him." But then,
Mm.
how far is that gonna get me here? Would it be able to like get me a house, you know, get me a house, get me a car, get me all
Mm.
these things? It's not possible because I will have to also look for a second job to help maintain my lifestyle.
And there we go. What I was talking about with the side hustle for your side hustle to be able to just barely make ends meet. And again, and I think you were very insightful when you said society as a whole. We have to drill it down to places and spaces where when we invest in that area or that domain or that space or that key concept area, we will see the benefits, not just for us and those around us, but for the community and the society as a whole. We just don't yet have that mindset, that thinking, that understanding, that appreciation for how things work and can work for everybody, not just for a portion of the society. And again, you point to economics and economic opportunity. It just goes right back again to quality of life, power, prestige, respect. These are all things that we need, but the core thing driving it is who I am as a person. And I became that person because of who I came from, when I came from there, and all of the people and supports or lack thereof around me. Antigua and Barbuda operates on what they call the economic engine is primarily driven by what they call a blue economy model. Yeah. Tourism, sand, sea, and surf. Unless you have gigs at the hotels, gigs at events that they might hold, um, it is definitely limiting. And one of the things that happens as a result, as you rightfully said, to find greater opportunity and to grow yourself and to have that quality of life, you have to leave. Is it
Yeah.
that, let me ask you this. Do you think that our youth would stay if opportunities existed at home?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because not only would, let's say for instance, they have exactly what they need here, Antigua provides you the safety, not only safety, the love as a community, and they provide a lot of different things because when you go to the States, the culture is so much different up there. You can't just go on the street and just say good morning to any and anybody.
Mm,
Down here we can just say hey morning, what's up, and everybody just acknowledges you.
yeah,
And that's like the kind of love. And even if, let's say for example, I'm a stranger and something's
yeah.
happening, that person would be like, hey, I saw you struggling X, Y, and Z, ZK, and maybe trying to help you out and so forth.
Community.
The community.
Yeah. It goes back to that whole conversation that I started, kind of touched on it briefly last show. Collectivist versus individualistic. Yeah. Those are the two main types of societies that you have. And what that means, if I'm a collectivist, we collect. And what does collect do? You see me? You see
Yeah.
that? It collected, right? Let me show you the individualistic. Me,
Divides.
my, I. Yeah?
All right.
I'll work with you if it's to my benefit. I work with you because it is beneficial to us all.
All right.
Different rationale. Some of the ways in which you see it playing out in real ways in the family setting, collectivist, we will have our babies sleeping in the bed with us, right? You look at TV, when you see them having children in the US and whatever, where do they put the babies?
In a separate room.
What did they do? They did what? They
Put on the monitor.
separated
Yeah.
individual, right? They individuated them. And so what it does, it says, I'm an independent, separate entity, and what I do to benefit me is what's best. And however it affects you, that's your business. Every man for himself and God for us all.
All right.
Yeah. In the collectivist culture, you will find like the example I gave with sleeping in the bed, but also even the way we speak, there will be a truncated way, modality of communication. Somebody asks you a question or say something you didn't quite get it. The way we would respond to that in a collectivist culture, we'd be like, say one word, say. In the US or other Western countries where they utilize a individualistic model, they would respond, "What did you say?" Several other words to get to the same meaning. Why? Because they're protecting themselves. I don't want to get it wrong because there may be some consequence for me. We don't want to get it wrong simply because we want to know. And there's a shortcut in terms of the way we speak. And that's one of the reasons that you find we speak the way we speak is because we're using a different modality, a model for language and speech patterns and context and contextualizing conversation. Anyway, we're coming up on time here quickly, and I'm so sorry. Technology was not our friend today. But you know what we're not gonna do? We're not gonna let that stop us. We're gonna keep going. And for our viewers, our listeners, thank you for showing up. We're gonna revisit this conversation because we definitely want you guys are gonna be amazed at what we can drill down on and will drill down on with Dr. Skinner. What we're experiencing in Antigua and Barbuda, again, just as a case study, isn't unique. It's happening all across the Caribbean. I'm not going to. Hmm, I'd rather not share some of the gruesome things that have been taking place across our region. But I do want to say that these things are happening for multiple reasons. There are multiple things impacting them. But the answer, the way we start getting back to where we need to be and having that better experience and sustaining it, we have to get back to basics. We have to go to the root. We have to go to the root. That's where it started, and that's where it can be stopped. It can be redirected. So kudos to the Prime Minister for doing what he knows how to do, but I'm going to reach out because I want to make sure that we're bringing our expertise and our know-how to the table so that Antigua and Barbuda can become what people call a gold standard. We can show them how it's done, how it's really done. Not just talk, but real tangible outcomes that are sustainable. Yeah. California is what? Home of the Bloods, right? And the Crips. I think Cali knows gang life, right? They're about that life. Bring in the experts and have them help us take advantage of our experts locally and regionally. Um, we got work to do. Our babies are dying, and we ain't about that life. Yeah?
Yep.
Ha, Javante. It looks like we are out of time. Oh my goodness. Oh, and Antonio is here. Did I tell you?
Oh, I saw a message. I was like, hey, and he
Mm-hmm.
is tuning in from Coleman, South Dakota.
Yes, I, Rastafari. I am so excited. That's the thing. And again, this is also how we create and sustain healthy change, supporting healthy behaviors, encouraging healthy outcomes, rewarding healthy, positive, principled behaviors, outcomes, and attitudes. If
Right.
I'm rewarded, yeah. If I'm rewarded, if I'm incentivized, hey. So if we really want change, we have to be the change. Anyway, here we are. Another day. I'm gonna let you take us out. I'm gonna look away. Javante, it's all you. Hey, I see you.
Well, thank you guys again. Thank you for coming on, supporting us. We definitely love your support. Thank you for listening to us. And that's Mindful Things podcast, where we educate and we share with you a lot of exclusive things. Now, stay tuned for our next episode next week, Saturday at 7 p.m. You don't want to miss it. Definitely don't want to miss it.
Hey, fire. And thank you for the grace. Technology, we can't control it, but we can work with it. Yeah?
All right.
No,
That's right.
we don't stop. We do not stop. So thank you for coming and plugging into the power of perspective. Peace. Deuces. We're out.